What's up, tutorial heads? So I'm gonna go over the main features and stuff of Krita. So when you open the program, the first thing you can do, if you have a slow computer, you want to go to Settings and then Configure Krita, and then you would go to Display. And then you would take this preferred renderer and you would set that to software, and that'll help it run a lot smoother if you're on a really slow computer. Well, it won't run smoother, it'll actually be less smooth, but it will use way less CPU. So that is the first thing, but I'm going to leave this on angle because this is actually kind of a fast computer. And so that's the first thing I do. After you do that, you need to close and reopen the program for the changes to take effect. So the first thing you want to do besides that, if you have a slow computer, you can close out this donation thing, and then you go to File, New, and make a new document. Let's do like 1800 width by 1200 height. This will use less RAM. Resolution, that's only really used in printing, but 300 is good if you're going to print it. And then everything else, like model, depth, profile, and all that, that's all pretty sane. Like the defaults are all pretty sane. And then you have this content tab where you can set the contents, but you don't need to mess with that. You can just click create and it'll create the document. So here we are at the main screen. This is a wipe. I wiped my settings so I could show this to you guys. So let's go over the panes. So as you can see here, we have the top bar with some buttons. We have the sidebar with some buttons. Over on the right, we have our advanced color selector, and then when you click on over here at the tool options, you have tool options, and then down here you have your layers. By default, you get a blank white background and a paint layer, and then you have your brush presets down here, where you can go through all your brushes. This brush presets can actually be accessed by pressing this button up here. So this is your brush presets button. Personally, I never use the brush presets pane, so I'm just going to close that out. And so the brush presets button is right here, so I'm going to open that, and this is where I will have all of my brushes. So the three brushes you will need is the basic 5 size, which is this dark one. So you right click on that and do assign to tag, and then you do favorites. And then we're gonna also do this black sketch brush down here. That's important for sketching. So assign to tag, favorites. Oh, I guess it's already in there. Let me see, favorites. If you go to the top drop down, it gives you your tags. And yeah, it's right there, it's already in there. That's why you can't. Okay, so go back to all, and then, or all in tag, no, all. And then, so you have those two, and then you need your soft airbrush, which is this one. It's your soft airbrush, you're gonna use that for soft shading. Assign to tag, favorites. And then, optionally, you can add this one too, this opacity one. That's already in there, okay. So when you look at these, you have these three are erasers here. So you can use these to erase, or you can have like a brush like this selected where you press E, and that will enable this button, which is eraser mode. This button right here. So I'm going to press E, and that enables eraser mode, and that turns your brush into an eraser. So I'm going to press E again to disable that. That's a toggle. You press E to toggle that. So the next thing I like to do is I like to go up here to the brush engine. This is the brush engine. And you want to always check eraser switch size, because that way, oops, wrong button. That way when you enable the eraser and you change the size of the eraser with open bracket, close bracket, or you can use this slider here, or you can hold shift and drag left and drag right. The size of the eraser will not change the size of the brush when you turn off eraser mode. So I'm going to turn off eraser mode here. And as you can see, the brush changes size and back to the original size that it was when you were in paint mode, non-eraser mode. So yeah, that's your eraser, and that's your brush engine right here. You can make custom brushes in this, and then your brush presets. So for the brush presets, you have these 3 erasers, and then you have these. Whenever there's a black line, that means it's going to add paint on top. And whenever you have a purple line like this, that means it's going to smudge the paint. So say you have like some paint here. I'm going to change the color here to a blue. And then it kind of smudges, as you can see. So the purple is a smudging. The blue is also a sort of a smudging deal as well. Actually, no, the blue is like a soft airbrush kind of deal. And then the white is smudging. And the green is also smudging, but adding paint. White is just smudging. It doesn't add any color. And then down here we have more custom stuff, stamps and stuff. Okay, so that's the brush presets. So you Control A is select all, and then I'm going to hit delete to clear the canvas, and then Control Shift A to deselect all. So the next thing I like to do is you have your tool options over here. This is personal preference, but what I like to do is, if you don't see it, it's underneath Advanced Color Selector tool options on the little tabs here, tool options. What you can do is you can click and drag that tab out. Oh wait, no, you have to right click, or sorry, you have to click that tab to activate it, and then you click the undock button there, and then you can drag it. There it is. And then I like to put it over here on the left side below the tools, and then I like to expand this so that I can see the options. So these are the tool options here. I like to leave it on basic. There is a stabilizer. If you prefer to use a stabilizer, you can use stabilizer. I never use weighted, it's terrible, but for stabilizer you can check that. And then for delay, I always turn that off, that's terrible. And then set it between 50 and 100, and then it will actually make your lines smoother. Personally, I don't use it, but it is an option. So that's the stabilizer, that's the brush options. This button is your mouse. You can move vectors around with this, and this is your text option, is the text here. So if you make a text box, you highlight this and you type in here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can highlight that, change the font over here, fonts list, and then you have bold, italic, underline. It won't actually show on your document until you hit save here. There we go, now it shows. The text tool in Krita is actually very rudimentary, so I wouldn't rely on it too much. And then the next thing is your path editing tool, shape editing tool. That's for vectors. We're not going to go into vectors today. That's more for graphic design stuff, more calligraphy tool. This is like, I think, yeah, this makes paths. This makes a vector. So that's not something we're going to use. We're not going to go over that. Then here we have our brush. We obviously know what the brush is. We have our line tool. You can make lines with this. And then we have our box tool. You can make boxes, circles. These are all the shape tools. And these with the little anchor point things on them here, these are all path options. So we're not going to use those. If you want to learn about those, I'm not actually going to teach these because these are all vector stuff. And I personally don't do vectors. I know how to do it. I just have never done it in Krita. I did it a lot in GIMP and Photoshop, but yeah, this is not important unless you like dragging anchors all day. I don't like it. It's not like drawing. And then this is your transform tool. So when you pick it, it's going to pick everything that's selected, and then it'll allow you to transform that. And then if you hold shift while dragging on a corner, it will scale. And then when you press enter, it will apply the transformation. Yeah, that's the, and then you can like right click, mirror, flip, all that good stuff. And then over here is the move tool. I would recommend you use the move tool to move an object instead of the transform tool, because that will actually pixelate it a little bit. The move tool does not pixelate it. And then this is the crop tool. This is gradients. This is the color picker. This is the blur tool. This is the healing brush tool. It's good for photo editing. And then this is the fill tool. So for the fill tool, you have three options here. You have fill selection, which will fill the entire thing. Control Z to undo. And then you have fill similar pixels. This will fill similar pixels and closed and whatever you have there. And this will fill color difference. And this will fill, yeah, this is like the default, the magic wand fill, and then the color picker to fill. So I always use the magic wand fill. Fill source, I don't fuck with that. Reference, you're going to use either one of these two buttons. The right one here will select your sample from all layers, and then the left button will select your sample from the current layer. So if I set it, if I make a new layer here and I draw a circle, and then I go back to fill tool, selecting only the current layer will select only the current layer. So if I fill this, it will fill the entire circle since it's on the top layer. But if I select all, it will fill only the square because it's selecting all layers. And then you have tags, so you can designate layers as tags in case you only want it to apply to certain layers. So for fill extent, threshold 1 to 10 is pretty good. If you want it to be less sensitive, you can raise it, but it might fill over what you're trying to fill. And then spread, I leave it, I don't fuck with spread. Use selection as boundary, I don't fuck with that. And then you have your grow, I like to set that to 2 or 3 because then it gets rid of that sort of white border that it might make otherwise. Feather, I don't fuck with feather. And yeah, that's the fill tool. Because without the grow set, you will have this this sort of like white border between the edge of the fill here. You can see it here. And then if you enable the grow, it will fill past the white border, which is especially good if you're trying to fill line art, which I do a lot. And then this, I don't fuck with this. In closing, I don't fuck with that. And then all these, I don't fuck with all these. And this is selection right here. I don't fuck with these. And then these are selections. So this is your box selection. Control Shift A to deselect. And then circle selection. and then your polygonal lasso tool where you can click down to make anchors and select like that, or you have your lasso where you draw. And then this is magic wand. This will select magic wand. And then I don't actually know how to explain magic wand. Sorry, it's kind of like the fill tool, but with a selection. There's a color picker selection, and then the paths selection. I don't fuck with these. This is the zoom. You can zoom in or you can zoom out. For this, I use Control plus and Control minus bound to buttons, or Control plus or Control minus on the keyboard. And then for hand tool, this will move the canvas around. So instead of selecting the hand tool, what I like to do is I like to just hold down space and then drag. Or I think you can use middle mouse button, click and drag with middle mouse button also does the hand tool. Okay, so that's all the tools. Now let's say you want to select this circle. So you would select this circle, but it's not going to select the very edges, so you do select grow selection, and then you can grow it by like 3 pixels, and then Control X is cut, Control V is paste, and when you paste down, it's going to make a new layer with whatever you paste in it. There's also other selection options, like you have feather selection, which will soften the edge, shrink, which will shrink it down. I don't fuck with border selection, but that does exist. Apparently that's a thing. And then remember, Control Shift A is deselect. Filters. You have filters, just like Photoshop. You have these, like one common one used to use is Gaussian blur, where you can adjust how blurry you want it. That's a Gaussian blur. That's a good one. Filter. And then the other big one is adjust HSV, which is Control U. This is your hue saturation value adjuster. So the hue, this is going to adjust the blue circle because that's what we have selected. So you can drag the hue slider and it will change the color of the pixels. You can drag the saturation slider. I think it's already at max saturation. That will increase the saturation of the pixels. And then the lightness will increase how much black is in it, or decrease, or make it more white. It'll add black or white to the pixels. You can make it entirely white or entirely black with that, or anywhere in between. This is always good. So remember, Control U, and then let's make it purple. There we go, Control U. Always remember Control U, that's very important. Then we have more filters. We have adjust, the hue saturation value is the one you're going to use the most. Artistic stuff like oil paint. They're kind of shitty, but it's something. They're a thing, they exist. And then you have layer options, so you can cut layer, copy layer, paste layer, new layer, group. Layer groups are important. So let's make a green mark on layer 2. So we have the purple circle and the green circle layer. They're both named layer 2. Great. Let me rename that. So right click, rename. Rename. Oh right, you just click once and then click again on the name, and then that'll allow you to change the name. So let's name it 3. So if you want to make a layer group, you can hold shift to select 2 layers, and then right click and do group, quick group, and that will make a layer group, like a layer folder, which you can collapse or expand with this little arrow here. And then what we have is the these little buttons here. So this will lock the layer so nothing can be done to it. This will make it so it only applies to the bottom layer in the group. So if I do that, you can only see it on top of the green circle, as you can see, because the green circle is the bottom layer. And then lock opacity makes it so only, this is this last button here, lock opacity makes it so that you can only draw inside. You can only draw inside of the pixels that are already there. So that's lock opacity. And then what you can do is you can say you want to shade this. So you would make a layer on top. You want to shade this bottom layer. We want to shade this green circle. So you would make a layer on top. And then you have layer blending modes. You can do like, I like to do multiply for shading. And then do like a purple color, purple grayish color. And then your soft brush here. And then you can just, oh right, you have to click the clipping group, and that will shade only the layers at the bottom of the group. But yeah, layer blending mode, you can have multiply, you can also have like luminosity, which will make it lighter. You can have hard light, soft light. Hard light is somewhere in here in one of these drop downs. Soft light. You can have overlay. You can have divide. You can have all these blending modes, but multiply is the one you're going to use the most, and luminosity for light. And then you also have over here, up here, this drop down here is blend modes for your brush. So if you set that to luminosity and pick like a light yellow, it will make it really light. So that's your luminosity. I mean, that's your brush blending mode. I like to leave that on normal. Normal is default. And then I'll set the layer mode, because I'd rather have layer modes set than brush modes, because brush modes are kind of not that precise. So the next thing here is your opacity slider. Let's say we want to make layer 3 show only 50% opacity. There you go. Drag that opacity slider for the layer, and each layer has its own opacity. And then over here, the little eyeball will hide the layer. And yeah, that's everything I can think of off the top of my head. Let's see. When you save a file, save as. Save is going to save on top of the file you already have, but if it doesn't have a file, it's going to do save as. Same at 111, that's going to create the file. And then when you do save as, it's going to create a new file. 111R. Then now we are on, it's going to create a new file and move you to that new file. But when you do export, export will create a copy of the file in the format you specify, but it won't move you to that file. It'll just export the file. So if you want to export, do PNG right here, and that's going to create a PNG. I like to set the PNG at like 6 and just leave everything default. That's going to create the PNG. If you want transparency in a PNG, just get rid of your white background and then export like that, and that will create transparency as long as you have this checked, which is store alpha channel. You want to make sure you always save your work because it's easy to lose it. Let's see what else. Color wheel. Yeah, this is your color wheel. So you can pick a color here. When you go to the right, you have saturation. When you go to the bottom left, towards the white, you have lightness. And when you go to the dark, you have your value. It adds black as you go towards the black. So if you want to make like a brownish color, you pick a lot of gray and more red maybe. And there you have a brownish color. If you want to pick like a gray color, you just go all the way to maybe a little bit of blue, and you go almost all the way to white and black. Between white and black there, that will give you a gray. And yeah, that's I guess that's about it. Peace out.